Hello, folks. Dustin Zarni here, Democratic Elections Commissioner of Onondaga County. Welcome to Commissioner in a Car. Today is Sunday, December 21st, and I am doing my top 5 stories of 2025 edition. The year's not quite over yet, but the way things are working out schedule-wise going into the new year, I wanted to get my top 5 stories of what I felt were some of the most important things that happened in 2025. It's kind of my look back at everything that's gone on. And next week, after Christmas, the Sunday after Christmas, going into the new year, I'll do what my, my look ahead to 2026 and some of the things that are going to be going on. But let's take one more look back at 2025. But first, let's look back at what's happened at the Board of Elections this week. Really, we're, kind of right back onto the normal business of the board. People don't understand that registration is a year-round thing. When I got this job, everybody thought, oh, hey, and I forgot, go Bills. You got to get the go Bills in there. I forgot. It's, big game today. All games going at the end of the season. Big game last week, beating New England. They have to win out and hope New England stumbles for them to get the NFC or AFC East. So go Bills. All right. Anyways, registration work has resumed at the Board of Elections, and I actually had I've been on vacation. I've been on vacation and will be on vacation or work trips until January 12th. That being said, that doesn't mean I don't stop working. Of course, I'm doing stuff like this and other things. But one of the things that I did do is we had a day in the office, and it's actually a day out of the office. I had my first annual, what I hope to be an annual Democratic retreat. I took the Democratic staff members out. We went to Delphi Falls. There was a nice little place out there that we just kind of went out and just talked about the year. We went over some of the stuff for next year. We had a training exercises or 2, actually 5 different things where we did some team building exercises. I kind of put my knowledge that I've been gaining at all these different conferences to help with this. But also, we have a lot of new not new staff members, but a lot of people are going to be in new positions in 2025 or 2026. So I wanted to go over that. We have some structure issues that we're dealing with, not problems, but new issues. And I'll kind of go out about that in a little bit. It's one of my top stories of 2025. So it was a great time. We and by the way, this is all something that I paid for out of my own pocket. The Onondaga County didn't pay for it. It was a work day, and the staff was on administrative day. And yes, the Republicans will have their own retreat. I think they're doing theirs on December 30th. And then the leadership structure is going to get together as well. So these are things that are important because, again, we're not a nonpartisan board. We're a bipartisan board. And bipartisan boards are different. We sometimes will meet separately. We sometimes will, do these kind of things. But we also get together at the end to do the stuff that the board needs to do. Sorry about I'm a little tired. I don't know why. Anyways, so that's what happened this last week at the Board of Elections. So let's go into my top stories for 2025. Now, I say my top stories. And the reason I'm saying my is because these are things that were important to me and important to Onondaga County. So a lot of the things like the national stuff, like the governor's races in Virginia, New Jersey, some of the special elections that have been out there. that's not something I'm going to talk about in these top 5 stories. These are local stories that affected either the Onondaga County Board or the Onondaga County voters. I think, I wanted to have a minute to tell you why I believe these 5 things were very important and need to be top of mind at ending 2025. And of course, the first story, number 1, Sharon Owens. Her mayoral campaign is my top story for 2025. It's an important campaign. It's important to note that she was not the Onondaga County Democratic Committee nominee, but she was running as a Democrat. She won the primary in an historical upset over the Democratic nominee Pat Hogan, Democratic designee Pat Hogan, and thus became the nominee. There were several different Democrats that decided to run as independents, Alfonso Davis and Tim Rudd, although he switched his party to Republican and then switched out of it to become a true independent and continue his race. There was also a Republican mayoral candidate, Tom Babylon, and even at the end, Pat Hogan launched a write-in campaign at the very end. Needless to say, undeterred, Sharon Owens' campaign was a dominant campaign in the city of Syracuse, and really will be a dominant campaign and force in the Onondaga County Democratic landscape, because she won her primary by 30 points, won her general by 40 points, just historic margins of victory. And of course, she's an historic candidate. She's only the second woman to be mayor and the first person of color to be mayor of the city of Syracuse in our history. This is huge. And while she is seen as a third term for Ben Walsh, who's the outgoing mayor in many minds, she's going to bring her own philosophy to city government, and she is a Democrat, unlike Mayor Walsh, who was an independent. So City Hall, with her, despite her being an outsider, with her ascension on January 3rd is her swearing in. With that, she will, be bringing City Hall back into Democratic hands for the first time in 8 years. And if she chooses, can be a major force inside the Democratic Party. And I hope she will, because I think she's going to be an excellent mayor, and I think she ran an incredible campaign. Obviously, she didn't run it by herself. She had an incredible team around her. Some people that I know were very big in that, and I'm not going to name names because I'll miss a lot of names. And I was not a part of a campaign. I don't take parts in campaigns except for advisory roles, especially primaries. I stay neutral in primaries, and then of course, I support all Democratic candidates. I support all candidates. Whoever asks me for information, I give it to them. I don't take money from campaigns. I don't sit on campaign boards, but I do help, and I try to help. And I did help Sharon Owens after the primary. I helped her campaign along with the Hogan campaign and anybody who asked me for information before the primary. But so that was my number one big story. The number two story is obviously flipping of the Onondaga County Legislature for the first time in 50 years. I know for people outside of the city of Syracuse, that might be your number one story, and I get it. And it is huge. The legislature was 12-5. It has 17 members, 12-5 Republican going into 2025. It was 11-6, but then Chris Ryan left the legislature to go to the state senate, and county executive Ryan McMahon decided, even though that's a Democratic seat and long seen as a Democratic seat, he wanted a vote to be able to pass all kinds of bonding issues going into 2025, because a 12 vote majority is, you could do a lot more than an 11-vote majority. You need 2/3 to do bonding and other things. So he put in a Republican there. The Democrats were able to flip 5 seats back. So now they have, going into 2026, a 10-6 majority. And it's the first majority for the Onondaga County Legislature for the Democrats since 1977, which was only a 2-year majority. So it's important that, Democrats, this isn't a blip on the radar. They need to win the elections in 2026 because, again, the 1-year term thing. And this did not make my top 5 stories to even year legislation because it's going to be part of 2026. So, that's an important part of this story is, can they keep majority or can they expand it? Because even though they flipped 5 seats, there were many seats, 3 or 4, that were left uncontested. Actually, there was 5 or 6 left uncontested, but 3 or 4 that probably would have gone Democrat if they put up a candidate, because other Democratic candidates in those towns, especially in the 2 seats in Clay and the seat in Onondaga, those 3 seats definitely could have flipped Democrat with what we saw this last year. So it's kind of a big part of the story of the flipping of the legislature is some things that were left on the table and some things to do in 2026. We'll be talking about that next week. The blue wave. The third story I have is the blue wave washes over Onondaga County. And I think this is significant. And it's important to note that the Democratic successes in 2025 were undoubtedly caused by the blue wave that hit the nation. That doesn't mean that the candidates who ran weren't a big part of that. Because A, if you don't run, you can't win anyways. And B, there have been times in the past, there have been times where the Democrats in Onondaga County were not big participants in the sorry, you hear my dogs going out there. They're just, going crazy like normal. But there have been times where Democrats in Onondaga County were not participants in the blue wave. 2018 is an example where we had this big blue wave, but we were unable to translate them into big wins, in our local county. So this was big, that this blue wave were actually that we were able to actually be a part of it. And we saw many town boards flip, many town supervisors flip. The biggest is the Salina sweep, I like to call, because the town of Salina has long been held in Republican hands since the mid-90s, despite having a Democratic plurality of voters and a voting pattern for big races for Democrats. And they flipped 2 of the 4 board seats, and they flipped the supervisor plus the 2 county ledge races that were largely held in Salina, one because of their performance in Salina. So that was a huge flip. And of course, it, continues the trend of Salina being big in local elections. Chris Ryan and John Mannion won Salina last year to ascend to their races. I'm sorry, Pam Hunter is, right? Yeah, I think, is it Pam Hunter in Salina? I think so, yes. I have to double check, but you know what? That's a next year thing, so we're going to deal with that later. But yeah, so the blue waves washing over Onondaga County and helping with the local races was a huge story. The next story that I'm going to designate is a little bit of kind of putting a pin in it. This may not be a big story for a lot of people, but it's a big story for me, and a big story, I think, what we will see in Onondaga County going forward. And that's a little bit of the desperation of the local GOP. they were desperate to win a lot of these races this year. And in the wake of them losing, I think we're going to see even more of a desperation. And I'll point out three big examples of that. We had the Village of Liverpool race where they anointed a guy that never lived in the Village of Liverpool, rented an Airbnb as a way to try to fool the voters that he was a village resident and that he cared about the Village of Liverpool. Tom Valerino, and we were in court on this, and unfortunately, the court allowed the question to go forward because of some technical stuff on this, but it was really shady, and it got a lot of press. But also some other ones that didn't get a lot of, well, another one that got a lot of press was the working to take the voice away from Democratic voters in Onondaga County Legislative 9. This was their big push to try to win a Democratic-held seat, where they tried to throw off Palmer Harvey off the Democratic ticket, and were successful. But Nicole Watts, who was running on the Working Families ticket, and a registered Democrat, and also now the new Speaker of the new legislature, the Speaker-elect anyways, well, it'll be official in January, won in one big time, and there was a split that happened with Kenyatta Callaway, who many Democrats were supporting on the Democratic committee, but Nicole Watts easily won the general election and then became, but you saw even some former Democrats that were out there helping Banki Sakura, who was the Republican nominee, trying to play on, Democratic themes, to try to fool the voters into thinking that he was not a Republican or that there was no Democrat running. And we saw that. And then the last bit of desperation, again, and many people won't know about this, but in the town of Elbridge, the town Democrats wanted to put up one Democratic candidate for town council, and the Republicans actually crashed their caucus and forced them to put up three candidates, one Democrat and two Republicans, for town council. And that was that I think is kind of a, put a pin in this, but in town caucuses, you might see Republicans who don't like their party label having a little bit of a toxic feel to it, trying to crash Democratic caucuses. Now, we've seen a lot of Democratic towns switch over to petitions to prevent that. This is the ballot access method that they can use for town candidates. These three things show kind of a desperation that the local GOP tried to use to fool voters. It didn't work. That's the good news. But the bad news is they're going to be even more desperate next year, especially with their anointed queen of Lee Stefanik being deciding not to run. So that's going to be an interesting part of next year. So, and then finally, my final story for 2025 is the bounce back from the Onondaga County Board of Elections. There's no shame in saying that 2024 was a rough year for us, a rough year for me. I learned a lot. And I was lucky enough to stay on as commissioner. I feel like, some of the criticism that came last year was unfair, knowing that the staffing levels of the Board of Elections was astronomically low, and also there was a lack of willingness to hire temporary workers going into the fall. But that being said, we did have a rough year, and there was a lot of things that I took from it, that I learned from it. Going into 2025 could have been a rough year as well. We had a new Republican commissioner, a new Republican deputy commissioner. On the Democratic side, not 8 of our 11 staffers were in new positions going into 2025. We had 4 new positions created by the county legislature to try to address the staffing issues, the long held staffing issues. And so we had a restructure. On the Republican side, they lost 4 or 5 people as well. They have 4 or 5 new people as well. That could have set up a really bad year for us, but it didn't. Kevin Ryan is the Republican commissioner. We don't agree on politics, obviously. That's pretty clear. And sometimes we disagree on election law. That, we were both famously on the opposite side of the election year lawsuit. I won. But that's just, but Kevin and I actually really found a way, along with his deputy Nicole and my acting deputy Desiree LaFave, we found a way to get through 2025 and I think run our board as efficiently as ever. He gets credit for that. I think our staff gets credit for that too. There was a lot of things that we put into place that were, I don't want to say blocked. That's not the right term, but an unwillingness to try and an unwillingness to do because we didn't have the staff. So a lot of procedures that were put into place in 2025 that, we really ended the year with a great election season with very little problems. That doesn't mean there was no problems. There's always some problems. I don't like how the font on the ballot ended up, too small. We're going to be addressing that. I don't like how, there was no wait times though. And there was no, the hand count showed that we had really good counting procedures, and we were able to report results in a pretty good time, and we were able to certify. We met all our deadlines. So I was happy about that. So and we got a big year ahead of us, so, which will be about next year. So this week so that kind of concludes my top 5 stories. This week I launched my weekly wonk again. I relaunched it a couple weeks ago. This week I focused on voting methods. So early voting, election day voting, vote by mail, the 3 big early methods. I talked about how voter history showed which voters participated in it, which parties participated in it, which age groups participated in it, what some historical trends are going on with, preferences of how people are interacting with our democracy. I found a lot of interesting things there. And yes, the big wrap up is, yes, election day is the most popular, still remains the most popular, but it's waning. And, there's been a large reduction in election day vote over the last 6 years, especially in local years. It went down from, obviously 95% of the vote before early voting was election day, and now it's around 75, 76%. So that's a big reduction in just 3 local cycles, 21, 23, and now 25, where these new methods, actually 19, 4 local cycles, where these new methods are in. So, the data shows a lot of stuff. Next week, I will finish up my 2025 look back at showing how Democrats did and the shifts in power in Onondaga County because of the blue wave that I talked about, but also because of the hard work of a lot of candidates out there. But also, I'm in the middle of getting that data ready. It'll drop on Wednesday, Christmas Eve. But there are some criticisms of the Democrats and in there as well about how many, you know what? Spoilers. I'm going to wait. You can read it. But there will be some criticisms in there as well about, some ways that Democrats can improve going forward. So this next week at the Board of Elections is holiday week. Obviously, we have Christmas. A lot of our staff are taking time off. We're continuing to do our registration work. We're hopeful either this week or next week that we're going to publish the tentative offices to be filled and the tentative public officials list. Once we get, we're still proofing those, and we're doing this early. we usually don't put that out until February 1st. And the reason being is there's actually a legal reason. The clerks around the county, the city clerk, the town clerks, the village clerks, they're all supposed to send us which offices are up for next year. They have to send it to us. If they and then we certify the ballot on February 1st of what are going to be the races that will start walking petitions just later that month. But we're kind of taking the lead role because of the even year legislation. There's a lot of clerks that they're wondering as well. And so we're getting guidance and we're working with them, and we're trying to publish this list early because a lot of candidates want to know as well. So we hope to have that done by the beginning of the year, January 1st instead of February 1st or thereabouts. We do have holidays. People do get to take time off, and it's well deserved. And of course, the public officials list, we're just proofing, and we should have that up with the new public officials that are being sworn in and taking office on January 1st. That is a thing that we always try to have up beginning of January. So we're working on those as well. That's it for Commissioner Nakar. Go Bills. Enjoy your week, and I'll see you on Christmas Eve. I'll see you on the next week, which is December 28th, which will be our look ahead to 2026 edition. Thank you very much. Enjoy your holidays. Spend time with your family. Cherish them. Cherish your friends. And remember that elections are part of our life. But family and friendships and love is supposed to be all of our life. So please spread that wherever you go this holiday season. Bye-bye.